Hi, this is Shilpa here. Now, recently I've come across a few interesting queries and comments in my inbox, and also I've been going through the survey that I sent you a couple of, I think, a month back, and I think there were some very interesting comments that I want to focus on today, and here they are, right? So I'm just reading them. It's like I will never be able to try and be a practicing homeopath until I have the knowledge to choose the right remedy. That's one. Then it's hard for me to become a full-time homeopath. So this is an allopathic GP saying that until I know the right mechanisms. And another one, it's no use opening and sitting in front of in a clinic until I reach my target audience or target market. So I thought I have to address it this month because a lot of people suffer from this. And as practitioners, we suffer from what I call the perfectionist syndrome. So if you are a perfectionist and you are procrastinating in getting out there and helping your patients and building your practice, and if you're waiting until you have the right knowledge about everything there is to know, about asking the right questions, using the right approach, choosing the right rubrics, teaching, reaching the right patients, or finding the right medicines, then that's the perfect way to guarantee that you will have no success. So the way to give yourself the best chance of success is doing just the opposite, to just get started. Because you're never going to know everything about whatever your topic is. As you get out there and you start teaching and you start helping people with your homeopathy, it's like peeling an onion. I mean, you're going to learn more and more and more, and there is no end to how much there is to learn. And if you try and learn most of the stuff, the reality is that your patients or your practice will have moved by the time you get there. I remember when I started, I could just use one tool with some degree of confidence. It was the Bonninghausen approach, and that's all I used to get started. And interestingly, that's the type of people I went out and reached. That was my patient base in that charitable clinic. And then 4 years later, when I started using the delusional method to prescribe in children within my private practice, that was the type of clients I went out and got. So my patient type was all those children in schools, right? And my patient type expanded to accommodate the tools I knew, right? So if you're sitting there waiting until you get everything figured out, I mean, that's what I call the perfectionist syndrome. Because it's nothing but a really fancy way to procrastinate. And if you've got to learn everything right, then by the time you learn everything, so say, here is that data that represents everything right at this moment in time for you. And you're working hard until you know everything perfectly well, and you say you take about 5 years to learn everything. The reality is that by then, everything is going to look like this. Why? Because the more you know, the more you think there is to know. The approaches, the concepts that you think you've got to know are going to develop and advance beyond where it is right now. So if you want to practice homeopathy and if you have the adequate qualifications, then you have to start working with people right now. Work with people wherever they are. For your tools, right? What you know. Make those prescriptions with whatever information, whatever approach you have right now. Peel that first layer. Teach, educate people about what you know at this point in time. Share experiences. I've been expanding and experimenting with different tools and approaches and resources in homeopathy for close to 18 years. Now, and yesterday I was discussing with my colleague on obstacles to cure, and after 18 years of working with homeopathy, I learned a new tool. It never ends. I mean, if you're a practitioner, the learning never ends, the development never ends. You've got to put yourself out there right now. There is a theme I come back to over and over, is that you need to expand your toolkit. And students ask me, I don't know enough, but you've got to start with what you know today. And then as you reach a challenge beyond the scope of your tool, you start to explore for that new tool. That's how you learn. That's how I grew and expanded my toolkit on the job. You do not have to worry about being perfect or knowing everything when you get started. In fact, there is no possibility of ever being perfect. I remember when I restarted learning Indian classical dancing all over again after a few years back. I started learning a simple piece and I had to perform that piece in a couple of months of my starting. And I was really nervous. I thought I was not ready for performance yet because I do not know it perfectly. And finally, I had to go out on stage and I did the best I could. And then a year later, I thought I had mastered it. And I performed the same piece in front of a larger audience with much more confidence, gracefully, effortlessly, and they loved it, right? And I thought, wow, that was good. And then I watched a professional dancer perform that piece, and it was beyond anything I'd ever seen. It was breathtaking. The grace, the movements, the facial expressions, and I thought, wow, that is the room. That is where, there's always room for getting better. But I would have never performed if I had held myself back about being that perfect. So my audience still got the same enjoyment watching me perform, right? So perfection and perfectionism is just a fancy word for procrastination. Similarly, you're not going to learn everything in homeopathy, but you can still create an incredible difference for the people in their lives with what you know right now. You've got to just get out there and start helping with people where your tool matches with them. This is not an excuse to get out there and be responsible and try to do something beyond your expertise or your scope or your skill set. But once you've developed a minimum level of expertise in professional education, you just start peeling the onion. You expand your toolkit and eventually you will attract a more challenging, niche audience that just becomes more and more right for you. Okay, so there's always going to be more to learn, and that's the beauty of our practices and the beauty of homeopathy. So I'm Shilpa Bhoraskar, and wherever you're watching this, scroll down, leave me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, whatever it is, give me a reaction and let me know. And let's just go get out there, start helping our people with the homeopathy that we know and create an incredible difference in their lives.